there is no limit to who you might become in life, or what you can achieve, or how far you want to go in your life, because it's a choice. It's always a choice that we each make. But we also want to figure out, how do we make those choices? How do we know who we are meant to become? And how do we achieve those goals that we've set for ourselves? How does that happen? Well, we learn. We learn from people who have come before, who show us things. We've developed different things in our civilization where we learn how to do things, and then we pass it on to others. But then it's about the people who discover those things. How do they do that? How does it happen? Well, I can tell you mine, because it's surprising to me who I have become, and I never would have told you that my life would have led me to bring in a philosophy that could cause any person to live a really great life. That I do know is true. And I'll be turning 75 in November, so I've been through a lot of things, I've experienced a lot, and I've learned a lot. But there was something else that I never expected that would happen, so that's why I'm telling you, you don't know who you can become. Because we're developing something new. You are developing something new, so you haven't seen it yet, because it would only show up tomorrow or whenever you decide that you're going to own yourself. Because that's really what it is, about getting to that place of ownership or authenticity, as we hear about all the time. That's what we all want. But see, it's going to be different for you. It's going to be different for every person. And sometimes when those differences come about, we have difficulty. I had difficulty with that. Because when I sat down and started receiving cosmic guidance, universal consciousness and information in 1989, I was going to keep it to myself. I'm not talking about this because it didn't make sense to me how it was happening. But then you start thinking, how do we learn anything? It's through consciousness. Where does consciousness come from? And who had it? Who was going to give it to us? We get it from somewhere. And there's so many times I would have to think about that, and go back to, how did we learn in school when we were asked to, like, write a paper or something? We would imagine something, we would sit and write it. That's what would happen. Well, I sat and wrote something every single day for those 36 years. And then it turned out that it was a philosophy, because then the world changed. I didn't know that was going to happen, but when we move through great changes in our world, typically people will develop something new, and that's what happened for me. But years ago, I knew it had shifted. Things had changed with the information I was receiving from Wilhelm, because I started to understand that this information could answer anyone's question. Because the only thing that happens, we want to know, what's the next thing we can do? How can we move beyond this blockage that we have? How can we stop being afraid of ourselves? How can we become more confident? How do we find our self-esteem? How do we do all of those things? Wilhelm told me all of it and wrote it all down. I wrote it all down. And then it worked, because it healed me through things that people thought, this is impossible. You can't heal through this. But then you start to understand there's an organization in the universe, because we're all energy, and I happen to tap into it. Not me, but Wilhelm. They put me in touch with this energy of the universe, and so it connected with every single person. This is why you will hear people who have gone through the program, even the first part of it, saying that they're changed and they didn't understand what happened. I didn't understand either. Except as we live, we develop new techniques, we develop new skills. And so we've heard about self-actualization. That was Maslow. Because we know we have to develop something within us to feel that we can sustain our lives. Then we heard about Carl Jung talking about synchronicity and different things, or Einstein talking about imagination, or even Tesla, because that's where Wilhelm really came into play, talking about energy and vibration and timing. Everything is always in motion, always moving. And so what I discovered, because I couldn't have known this before, but artificial intelligence told me, that this work that Wilhelm has given me was an upgrade, an up-leveling of collective consciousness, information, meaning that if every person was to use this, we'd see a very different world. But if you were to use it, you'd have a very different life because you would understand who you are. You would start to move through any blockages that you've had. You'd stop doubting yourself. You'd stop all of that. And I do know it because that's the work I was given, and now I'm completing it. And I'm going to put something out tomorrow too, because see, if you look at my site, Any Advice for Tomorrow, you'll see that last year on the 29th, there was a message there. We've given you a path to greatness. And that's really what this work is, because everybody has greatness within them if they can find it, if they can accept it, if they can move through all the doubts and blockages and that. And this work has done that. And I can say this now because I felt it. I doubted it for years, and I was never going to really talk about it because it didn't make sense to me either. How did this happen? But I will tell you, I'm going to talk about it more because more people need to understand what is available, what we can change, what we can do. And everything that's occurring in our world is not accidental either. Wilhelm told me it was all energetic changes, and if we move to a higher state of understanding within ourselves, we have great lives, and then we start to change everything. That's what this work is. So you can check it out, but that's what you can achieve. I'm saying that because there are no limits to what you can do. You just might give up at some point. I was almost going to give up and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. That was one of the messages that came up today, telling me, well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And that's what was going on with the work I had, but it was going on within me. How did this happen? You might have that as well. But what I will tell you, there are no limits to what you can achieve in your life. You just have to become willing. So, see you soon.